people like to be able to change their minds. It's swipe culture all the time. And to build anything great, you have to be committed. People want to feel like I can change my mind at any time. And just understand that when you keep yourself in that situation, you're never going to have anything with real depth or get to where you want to go. Like that is you staying in that dynamic. And if you want to create something, like build something really great, you have to put yourself in a position where changing your mind isn't an option. I wanted to tell you this weekend. I don't know how it came up. Lamar was like, when did you meet Kaylin, or how did you meet her? And I told him like last October. He was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I thought you guys had known each other for like 10 years.
Your whole life.
I was like, no, we met in October. He's like, well, how are you guys so close? I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I thought you guys knew each other forever. And then
funny.
I was thinking about how kind of random it was. I mean, I don't really know from your side how that came in. I know how that came in from my side.
Did I never tell you?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the funny thing was that I already followed you, but I like didn't, you know how sometimes you follow someone and it's like the algorithm just never shows you and you're like, oh, so I knew your name because your name, Christina, the channel, you know? But I literally had never seen your content or your face. And so then Sarah was asking me one day about like how I was doing. I was going through a lot. I needed to release a lot. And she was like, she was so convicted, was like, I'm going to help you find your next thing. And like when she said that, I knew that my guides were being like, you're going to be okay. But then I also still felt like it literally was going to come through her. Like I just knew. And then she left and she texted me when she left and she was like, I just saw 444 on the license plate next to me. I felt like it was for you. And that's the number that my grandpa uses to talk to me. And like Sarah and I talk about that kind of stuff all the time, but she had never been like, I saw a sign for you, you know? And so I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be fine, you know? And then I released what I needed to release. And a couple days later, she was like, what are your qualifications again? So I like told her everything I know how to do. And she's like, okay, please stand by. 2 days later, get a group text with you and her. And I was like, oh, this is what it was. Oh, I know her. I've heard of her.
Okay, wow.
And then I talked to you.
Yeah.
And then I talked to Lo, and then,
It's funny, Sarah's intuitive.
She's so intuitive.
It's funny, I was just thinking about this because I was also thinking about when I was looking for, did I tell you this? When I was looking for a place down here, I was meditating. I was so stressed because I wasn't finding anything I wanted. And I wanted, at the time, I wanted something in PB that was like nice. And I meditated and I was like, tell me what to do to get this place. And they were like, talk to Sarah.
Sarah knows everything.
And so I text Sarah and I go, my spirit guide said that you have the hookup. And she was like, I do have a hookup. And so she texted her landlord and it was available. Like it was a brand new, he had just redone it. It was available. I could have taken it. And I ended up not taking it because I realized I wanted more space. But Sarah has the hookup.
She does.
So yeah, she had, I don't remember if she just said it to me. Or I think I just said, I told her I was looking, I was hiring. And she said, oh, I have a friend who's also looking, like she could be a great fit. And I was like, well, what does she do? And she told me, and I was like, I don't know that really maps to what I do. You know, I was like, but I'll follow any lead, the universe. You know, I was like, I don't know. You never know. And then we got on the phone and I honestly did not think it was going to go anywhere. Yeah. Like I did not think it was going to go anywhere. But like I was asking you about what you like to do and I was like, this seems like this would work. Like, you know?
Well, it's so funny because like I was in such like a depleted state.
Yeah.
That's like, I remember that conversation so clearly. And yeah, I remember after that conversation, I was like, I don't know. Like, because I was like, I don't know, which I mean, it was hard for me back then, I feel like, to know exactly what my skills even were. Like I was just so like all over the place. Yeah. So you're like, I remember you were like, well, what do you like? I was like, I don't even know what I like. I just know what I've been doing for the past however long. But then, you like literally created this role. Yeah. Basically.
Well, when I'm hiring, I mean, it depends what the role is or what kind of contractor I'm looking for, obviously. So for different things I need in my business, I have a different mindset. And that's, I think, one of the hardest skills as a business owner is learning to hire. And I think that's a consistent thing you like get better and better at. And I'm not perfect at it, but I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. and it's something I'm very conscious of with every hire or contractor, you know what I mean? But what I've learned is I need someone who likes what they're going to do. Like that's the most important thing. Yeah. And I also prefer, and again, it depends on what I'm hiring them for, but for a lot of things within my business, I have hired people in the past who have a lot of experience, and I have found that experience can almost get in the way of them doing their job. And so I look for someone who's excited, who wants to learn. Like that's the most important thing, like, because I can pretty much teach whatever I need to teach. So they have to have that natural kind of knack for things. Where I feel like if I gave you a little like this direction, you could take it and run with it. And I'm looking for like initiative. And I think those are the big things I'm looking for. And I've learned that a lot of times for things within my business, because it is so unique and specific, even when people don't have like the skill set or the experience, it doesn't always work because they're trying to put me in the mold of what has worked for them in the past with their experience, and nothing that works for me makes sense in my business. So I need people who are really like moldable and willing to learn. And I think I also needed, to this day, like something I look for is, can you take it and run with it? Can you take initiative, or do I have to handhold? And I remember on that call, it's like I'm looking for like the raw material, right? So it's like you didn't necessarily have all of the like skills that you're doing now, but you had the like, oh, I enjoy that. I know I like to create content. I'm creative. Like I like to write, things like that. Like if you like all of that, then you can figure this out. And you wanted to be challenged and you wanted to learn. And I think what I was really looking at was like your personality was very strong, which is what I wanted. I was like, I need someone who is not going to be a pushover and who like has some oomph, right? If I feel like someone is scared or like a people pleaser or like too soft, like you're not going to survive. You know, like you're not going to survive. So that's what I was, looking for. And we had that conversation. I was like, because I honestly didn't think that any of your experience was going to like map onto from what she told me. Because she was like, you know, she worked at the store. And I was like,
no, my experience was, I mean, a little bit from that,
but not really. And
but
then
it was more from before.
And I learned about all the stuff you were doing, and I was like, okay, this is not what Sarah told me. I was like, this is actually like a real conversation because I'm thinking like nothing's gonna map. So it's just like funny how that happened.
It's so funny, and I mean, no, we got close very fast, obviously. But this is our style.
So anyway, I just thought I would tell you that because he was so funny. He was like shook, and I was like,
it's October.
But I mean, you do get close working for me, though. I mean, it's a personal job. Like, it's a personal job. So.
I mean, like, but for me too, that's part of like what I love, and that's why it's like, I mean, I couldn't do this for anyone else who didn't have such direct communication and such like truth with love and vice versa. Because it's like, I want to love what I'm doing. It's like oh my god, I can't talk about it. I'm gonna cry. we can't do this right now.
Oh my god.
Okay, it's fine. I love what I do. I love Christina. Okay, we're moving past it. But like I couldn't imagine, and it's like again like the generator part. You know, I'm like literally not okay, you guys. But it's like I want to love and believe in what I'm doing so much, and it's like I couldn't love or believe in anyone more than I do you.
Thank you.
So
thank you. Well, it's not just me, right?
I know, but
I know. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is about like what we're doing and how we're helping people.
100%.
And that is the most important thing for me with people on the team that I'm like very particular about, because I have in the past had different people working with me who, you know, they were intuitors, but it wasn't like I feel this mission. And it made me feel really alone in it. And it's like, I need everybody to have the same drive of like, this is important for the planet. You know? And so that's a top thing I look for. Because I don't want to feel alone in pushing this mission, because it's not about like me, you know, it's about like helping people, and that's important. And I think any strong team, and this is a conversation I have with a lot of clients, because hiring is a big conversation. And I will tell you, founders, CEOs, I think a lot of their biggest grievances come from hiring and, you know, how to work with company culture and employees and dynamics. And it's a very stressful thing. It's very complicated and it weighs on people a lot. And you just always got to come back to people. They have to be good at their job. What makes somebody good at their job? It's like, they have to fucking love it. Like they have to love the mission. Yeah. And that's what creates that really strong culture. Like look at like Edge Theory, right? Yeah. Like they're all so on the same page and they have like, it's a mission. And so they're all excited about it. If somebody doesn't want to be there, they're not excited about it. It doesn't feel the same. Yeah. So that's how you build a really strong business, I believe. And obviously all companies are different. It's like the larger the company, not everybody necessarily is going to be over the moon about it, but there are companies that are large. I can think of a few where they've been very particular about, I mean, I think about like Organifi. And one of the things, like I remember I used to go in the office and visit, and it's like everybody there is so fucking pumped to be there, happy, like so loves the product. It's a lifestyle and you feel that. And I think that speaks for itself, and that's how you create a movement, really. So that's the most important thing. Yeah. I think about like what makes a good parent, right? It's like you love your kids so much, you don't always know what to do. You're not gonna know what to do. But like when you love that child, like you will make it happen. Yeah. You'll figure it out, even if it's messy. And it's the same thing with the business. Yeah. Right. It's like you gotta love the mission and like see the bigger thing. Yeah. Also, so that we're not making selfish decisions, right? When everybody is like, this is for the bigger mission, it creates this checks and balances where you can like check each other and like have bigger ideas versus when everybody's just there to like clock in, clock out, do the role, then, you know, people make selfish choices and that affects the company. Yeah. So that's like a really, really important piece of hiring.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's family. Like, and different people have different roles at different times. Everyone knows that I used to always say you have healthy dad energy, but it's like that's why you can accept it from someone like that, because it's like, you know that they're looking out for your best good, not only like because you love me as a person and you want me to thrive in my life, but because like if I'm not thriving, then the business isn't thriving. Yeah. Especially like on a smaller team, like what we have. But it's like, you can have, like you said, those checks and balances, and like everyone really does want to work together. And then it's like the day-to-day things, which we'll get into about like time management. It's like, you can push me on those things because it's like, I'm doing this for the mission. It's just like in your own life, you know, it's like, if I'm just going through lessons after lessons after lessons and getting pummeled by these waves of like the whatever's going on in the universe without any sense of direction, it's like, of course I'm going to be like, I'm not having a good time here. Yeah. But if it's like, I know exactly why I'm going through all these things and I'm doing so with intention and like, thank you that I get to experience this, then it makes like all of the day-to-day things worth it. And it's even if it's like, I don't want to sit here and whatever the thing is, write this email right now. It's like, if I don't write this email, the people aren't, you know, it's all related. 100%. So what I will say with that.
Well, let me just say though, also it's like, it doesn't feel good for me. It is a top priority for me that people who work with me want to be there. Yeah. Like if they don't want to be there, I don't want them there. Yeah. And we talk about this just like, if it's a one-off event and it's a one-off photographer, for example, I'm like, we look at like, are you excited about this type of content and stuff? Because I can feel if someone doesn't want to be there, and I don't want them there if they don't want to be there. I don't want someone to be somewhere where they don't want to be. Yeah. It doesn't feel good for me. And so that's why I always like am checking in on like, do you want to do this though? What do you not like? Because I also don't want someone to resent me because they think they have to do something. And I'm like, if you don't want to do it, then let me know and we can get someone else to do it. And that's like core for me. And I try to make that really clear with anybody I work with. And I think that's where like, you know, the last couple different people that have, you know, worked for me for a couple of years and like left, like everything's on really good terms because they know I'm like, if you don't want to be here, I will not take it personally. Like I totally understand that things change, like desires change, lifestyle needs change. You know, I'm not going to take it personally at all. Like I want you to be in the career like you love. And I'm okay with that, you know? And so I think that's just been good for me, and like just for people to feel comfortable. Like, hey, if they're like, you know, I'm not enjoying this work anymore, I'm like, let me know. And like, that's totally okay. I want you to be happy in your life, you know? And I think that has allowed people to feel like they can communicate, which is really important. because I just really don't want people to like, I just don't want people to not be doing what they want to do. Yeah. I think because I know what it's like to be in roles where I was not happy and I did not want to be there anymore, not because I didn't love the company or anything like that. It was just like it wasn't the work I wanted to do, and it wasn't personal. And I have experienced, like, in leaving those different situations, people taking it very personally, and it really hurt me because I was like, this isn't about you. It's like I have been sacrificing myself staying here because I enjoyed this business, this company so much, and then I created this resentment. It was my fault, and then I felt like I wasn't, you know, people were taking it personally, and it wasn't. And so I'm like very ahead of that because I don't want anyone to feel like that. You know, like, you know, we've talked. I was like, do you want to go be a DJ? Like, I was like, I'll support you. Like,
I know.
If it's time,
I was like, no,
time.
don't get rid of me.
Well, I'm not trying to get rid of anybody. I just like do not want someone to feel like I was holding them back. You know?
No, I know, and I appreciate that so much because same. I you know, had just come out of a situation that was like that. That same. It was like all this self-sacrificing and stuff because it's like you want to help that person, but it's like the work. It's not what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that what that does as well, at least in my experience, is like to be able to talk about the things that you like or don't like on a daily basis anyway, not on a larger scale of like, hey, I don't want to be doing this anymore, but just like, hey, I'm struggling in this area. And so then like you're able to offer support. And I think that like my fight or flight was so activated before because it's like, okay, well, if I don't like this, then like it's all or nothing. It's like this person is going to be like, well, you shouldn't be here anymore. And it's more of like, and not just in one dynamic, but I just feel like in life, people can tend to be so all or nothing. So it's like, then if I'm opening the conversation of like, hey, I'm not enjoying this, you're like, well, have you dedicated enough time to like really like honing that part of what you're doing? And it's like, oh yeah, you're probably right. I just need to like dedicate more time to it. And so like having that open line of communication when you're working with someone, instead of just like trying to gauge for yourself, like, am I resenting this? Or like, because like we were talking about, I love this phrase, shooting all over yourself. You know, of like, well, I should be better about this part of my job. It's like, or should this role actually be going to someone else? And it makes more sense to be in someone else's workflow and for you to be doing something else. But you can't have that conversation if you're afraid to like talk about what you like and you don't like. You know?
I mean, that I think goes directly into time management. And because I am all about this, and I know what it's like just within my tasks and my role, you know, because it's like now in the business, I have people who are handling things I used to handle, but I know what it was like for many years. I did all of it. So I like know what all of that was like for me. And I know what it's like when I don't want to do a task and I'm forcing myself to do it every single day and how inefficient I am. And realizing through the years when I was doing it all myself, like I should either just delegate this out or just not do it at all. Like this thing that, because there's actually nothing I have to do. And then if I can take that energy and put it into things I enjoy and go all in on things I enjoy, just how much more that moves the business. And so that's why when I'm checking in on things with you, it's like, do we just need to work on that skill set and then it'll be faster? Or is this something that's really, truly a drag? It's just not your thing. So then let's either give it to someone else where it is their thing and they can do it really quickly, or just we won't do it. You know, like it's like let's not waste your energy or your time, because I've learned that hardcore. And I was gonna message you guys about this, but I'll just say it here. I was listening to Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. Do you know that book?
I've heard of it.
So I was listening to it, and it's a lot of stuff I like already talk about, but he has like data and he has sophisticated terms for like expressing it. And I actually forget the exact term he used, but it was like overhead mental tax or something. And he was talking about how, he was talking about like the mental tax of, let's say what's an example I could use? Like, let's say you have to write 10 emails and it's like, hey, Kaylin, I need you to write 10 emails. And so every day you chip away at it, but you still have 9 more or 8 more. And there's a higher mental tax than if I just said one email. And then you just focus on it, you do the one thing and then you're complete, and then the next thing. And so I'm listening to the section where he's saying like, you do less things, just have less things to do overall, which, we've talked about a lot. And he was just explaining that in terms of like mental tax. And I was like, that's such a good way to put it. Cause that is what it is. And I know we've talked about this. I just use different terms where I'm like, it's taking up mental space every single day. And it's better to just not have that mental space. It's like, I only have one thing to do. I do it. I'm done. And then add the next one. Then like, okay, there's 15 things to do. And every day I'm still thinking about it and I'm inefficient. And so that is something that for sure with my time, like makes a huge difference. And honestly can be a mind fuck as an entrepreneur because you're the one that realizes
everything that has to be done.
Yeah. And so I have to create like pockets of this for myself.
Yeah.
For example, like I'm redoing the whole Ahai program essentially. And that can feel like a giant mental tax of like, I'm redoing this whole program, right? It's like a lot. And if I think about it that way, I'm feeling that every single day and I like can't focus because I'm thinking I got to do that. It's on the back of my brain. I've got other things to do. And every single day there's so much to do. There's so much content to create. So I'll use that as an example. What I do is I'm like, okay, I have this program I need to redo. So I need to have a visionary day. That's it. Like there's nothing else associated with it. All I have to do is, and so then I have my visionary day and I take that day and my only task is I'm just mapping out topics and modules and kind of because I'm reconfiguring it like a puzzle, And so I did that and then I was done. I was like, great, I'm done. Okay, now I'm done. And I'm like, okay, I'm making this one. And that's it. Like it's nowhere on the to-do list. I have to redo this program. Right. It's like record this one audio. And then I do that and then it's done. Like you see how like it's mentally a very different shift. And so that's where I have all of my big picture I have to do in a specific area that I don't look at. Yeah. Like that's, so it's out of my brain, but it's in an area, it's in one place on my computer that I don't ever open or see. But if I need to go look at it for reference, I can see it. And it's in one notebook that I never touch. It's like tucked away. So it's there, it's out of my brain. And when I'm finished a to-do task and I'm like, now what? I can go to it. But if I'm seeing that every single day, if it's on my to-do list, redo this program, I'm stressed as fuck.
Totally. And I mean, putting this on a smaller level too, like when we did a ADHD training, which changed my life.
Which I got some heat for.
What?
Okay. I feel like I shouldn't have to express this again, but I'll express it. And like I think you know my opinion on like I
agree with your opinion.
I don't, and I have full fucking episodes about this. Believe in ADHD. Yeah. Like you're intuitive, you're creative, you're tapping into, you know what I mean? So I don't like, do I believe in that experience? Yes. Do I believe it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so, but I also recognize, and so I don't usually say like I have ADHD. I've never owned that as like I have ADHD because I don't see it as that. And when they try to put me on meds for ADHD, I was like, I don't have ADHD. I'm just aware. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but I understand that other people connect with that. And they use that term. So you do you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what other people do, but that's my opinion on it. And I think sometimes people use that term to be like, well, I don't have to work on this. Right. And that's my problem with identifying with it. But like, you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so,
because it's the opposite for me. It's like I identify with it so that I see it as like something to work with.
Yeah.
But I also like didn't realize even what it was or that I had it until like way later in life. So that might be it too.
Yeah. I mean,
but like you said, it's like, it's all about the intention and how you relate to it.
Yes, and I don't care what other people do. I'll share my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, anyway, I had made some content about like the ADHD training, and people were like going off on me. ADHD is not real. Like, you of all people should know. Like, don't identify with that. And I'm like,
you're like, I literally say this all the time.
I'm like, you don't. Just don't. So anyway, I was just like, that was hilarious. But I use that term.
I thought you were going to say the other side of the spectrum.
I use that term because
that's what people.
That was like the point.
Yeah.
Like, and in my training, I'm like, you don't have ADHD. Yeah. You're just picking up a lot of stimuli. Yeah, you're psychic. Like, so anyway, people on the internet be playing. But okay, continue with the ADHD training.
Like putting something on your actual calendar is more productive than like writing it on your to-do list.
Oh, yes.
Because it's like, and then also like showing up and actually doing it that day is important. But it's like I used to not do that. I used to just like write all 10 things that I needed to do on the week every single day and like not think about the order of what I was doing, which is like a disaster. Now I'm like cringing at myself. But you don't know until you know, you know? And so it's like, like it's so much better for me to be like, I'm not going to get to this until Friday instead of like having all my mental space be like, fuck, I need to get to that.
Yeah. And like,
when am I going to do it?
Yeah.
Do I have time? And it's like, again, it's literally, and same thing with like communicating deadlines. It's like, you would so much rather me just be like, I'm not going to have it done until a week from now.
Yeah, exactly.
Than like, oh, I'll have it tomorrow. And then like tomorrow becomes every single day, you know? And you have to really be aware of how long things take you.
Yeah.
But part of that is like actually just keeping yourself accountable because it's like, I used to feel like I didn't have any idea how long things would take me, but it's because it takes me a different amount of time depending on how dialed in I am.
Yeah.
Which is like what the whole training was about.
Yeah.
Because it is like, again, like the reason why I say like I have ADHD is because I relate to it as like this superpower, this thing that I can like literally tap into, just like being psychic. I mean, it's literally the same thing. And I mean, to that point, it's like, yes, sometimes being psychic isn't the most fun, as we all know, you know? But you have to learn to work with it. And once you find that flow, it is a superpower to be able to go into a hyper focus. Like the way that I can sit down for 9 hours and like build an entire website and make 10 pieces of content. It's like people's brain, neurotypicals as they say, may not work like that, you know? But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and we're the same. And that's why I was telling you, I'm like, when I learned to dial it in, I mean, that's how I produce.
Yeah.
Right? It's
like
how
you write a book in 2 days.
Yeah. Because it's like half of me could just easily sit for a whole week and just be like, what am I doing? And I'm thinking about stuff. And if I'm not scheduled, if I'm not creating containers for myself and creating appointments for myself, I will just spend the whole week thinking about what I have to get done.
No, that's
and like
such a good point.
Doing busy work. And so I have to schedule it in, and we've talked about this, setting up a container where I'm going to be focused. And so I know what type of work, where do I need to be or what's going to like stimulate it? You know, so there's certain things like I would rather be with you and we can zero in on it and get it done. There are certain things where I'm like, I don't want anyone talking to me. There are certain things, if I go to a coffee shop, I will be more productive. If I need to like pump out emails or something like that I don't really want to do necessarily. I mean like emails, like replying to things. I need to be somewhere not in my house, because in my house I will get distracted because I should clean right now. Like, you know, the cats need me. Like shit will come up. And I think just like having space in my calendar, I have space for literally everything. Like I know when I'm going on a walk. I know when I'm exercising. I know when I'm answering personal text messages back. I know when I'm answering my Voxer. Like I'm so crystal clear with when all of that is happening. And that's where I think that goes back to the boundaries that we were talking about before, of people don't understand some of my boundaries because I'm like, no, I'm going on my walk right now. And they're like, well, can you just walk later? I'm like, no, because later is when I'm doing that. It's like I have it all lined up and that gives me free time. But when I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, I just feel like I lose so much time. And the reality is, like, when you believe time is abundant, you look at time differently and you realize I have space for all of us, so let me schedule it in and it all fits in. But you can very much experience the opposite. And as an entrepreneur, there's always so much to do, and people really struggle with balancing social life, relationship, career, like, and I think I do a pretty good job of balancing it, you know, compared to a lot of people I know. That's because I schedule it all in, schedule everything in.
And how can you expect to even know where all of your time is going if you're not like writing it down, scheduling it in, seeing it all mapped out? Like, oh, wow, maybe I am giving too much time to my social life. Like, I feel like you know, that used to happen to me, because it's like, of course, when you're being social, you feel good, you feel filled up. But then it's like, oh, I don't have time for anything else and I'm stressed the rest of the week, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think doing a time audit is one of the best things anybody can do for themselves, like when figuring out time management, because you'll see this is taking me way too long, or wow, I'm spending 12 hours a week on scrolling on Instagram. Like for a week, write down how much. I mean, I was even thinking about like with workouts and stuff. I was like, my workouts aren't long. I'm like, why did it just take me an hour and a half? Because you know what would happen is I would work out and then I'd be just kind of like letting my heart rate, like it just like, and then I'd start scrolling or like I'd answer texts. Yeah. That's a big one. I'd be like in between a set. Yeah. And I'd start texting and then I'm like, oh shit. Like, you know what I mean? And somehow my workout that should be like 25 minutes just turned into an hour and a half. Yeah. Or it's like, you know, classic freeze response. Like, you know, you get out of the shower and you just kind of sit there and you're like,
in your towel.
My actual shower was 2 minutes long, but like my time in my towel was like 30 minutes.
That's the most relaxing time of the day though.
Exactly. And it's, if you don't have in your calendar, this is my time when I'm relaxing, then you're going to create those times. Like just like you're already burnt out from your schedule. Yeah. You know? So when I know I have an abundance of time, like, hey, after 5 p.m., nothing. I can do whatever I want. I can actually focus.
Yeah. This happened to me a lot, like as I started examining the end of my day as well, because I started noticing like I'm going to bed so late. And of course this happens to all of us with like scrolling, but it wasn't necessarily that I was just scrolling like at the very end. It's like you said, like I would look at the phone and it would only be like 9 p.m. I'm like, cool. I've got like at least an hour and a half, maybe probably 2 hours, let's be real, before I'm like really going to go to bed. I could get in the sauna. I could take a shower. Yeah. I could read a book. And then it's like, I blink and it's 10:30 and I'm like, fuck, what did I didn't even watch a show or anything.
That happened to me last night.
Right? It's like, where did the time go? And it's like, because you weren't being intentional with it. Like maybe I started to cook something or I got up to get a snack and then I look at my phone and then I have a conversation with, you know, it's like, whatever. That's cool. You needed that. But like, for me, it's like even just the awareness of what I actually did. Like, I think someone told me about that once, like just write everything you did in a day and it'll make you feel better. Cause you're like, wow, I actually had these like life-giving conversations and we don't think about that with like where our time went. But something you said earlier that was a big code just now for me was like, how much time do you spend thinking about what you're going to be doing? Like, think about that. Like that is truly, that is like, if you identify as having ADHD, like that's a big one to think about. Cause we get like, the procrastination and the decision fatigue and stuff. And it's like, if you really were to just take the action, like you would feel so much better. Yeah. And it's just about getting in the habit of like doing that for yourself. And that's what you were telling me too with like we were talking about starting our work days. Like if you can just start, if you can just get into it, then your brain is already like in I'm working mode. Yeah. And so you take that kind of problem away for yourself.
Yeah. I'll just jump into it. And the thing is, I've learned if something's going to take me less than 5 minutes, just do it now. Yeah. Because I would 100%. I would just have that on my mental plate. Yep. I'm gonna just do it now, and then it's done. Keep going. And I'm not a believer in, what do they call it? Eating the frog first or whatever.
Wait, like, what is that?
Like doing the hard shit first.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm personally not a believer in that for myself. I think everybody's different. And I know people say like do the hard thing first, and I do easy things first with a time limit because it gets some momentum going for me. And I'm like, yeah, did that. And then I can jump into it. I need like a warm up, you know, I can't just like jump into the big thing. Yeah. Cause then I can't even focus on the big thing. Cause I'm thinking, okay, well, I only have 3 hours to do this. And then I have to do an Instagram post and write an email and then respond to these messages. Like I would rather just do all of that and then have a clear brain. And then the rest of the day I can do deep work. Is how I work. But I think the other piece that I think is helpful to address, like, with this audience that has been, I think the bigger thing for me, there's the balancing dating and work, but there's the balancing health practices and work. like personal processing and health practices. And there have definitely been times in my life where I'm doing all the things I want to do personally, like for my health. And I'm like, this leaves me like 3 hours in the day to be productive.
No, truly. That's so real. That's like what it is more than anything.
Yeah. It's like my morning routine just took me. Yeah. And I think about like on the weekend, like on a Sunday, I'll just be like, I'll do like I'll do my ideal morning routine. And suddenly it's 4 p.m. and I just finished. I was like, I cannot do this every day. So I think for me, I do have to be scheduled with it. And I've had to, like, everything I do, I'm looking at like minimum effective dose, where I think I used to, you know, the high achiever in me is like, wants to do everything for longer. And I'm like, what do I need? Like, I'm like walks. Like I love to go on walks, but I'm like, I don't need to go on this long ass walk every morning. I just don't have time. And I'm like, I feel the same, get the same benefits going on a shorter walk in the morning, and then I can jump into it. And I just saved myself like 30 extra minutes, like, or with, you know, any type of movement, exercise, like, I don't know, cold plunge, sauna, journaling. I mean, I can very easily spend an hour or 2 hours journaling, but when I'm like, hey, I have 10 minutes and I'm really targeted, what do I want to spit out today? Like, I get the same result or feeling, you know? And I think even for me, things that make me feel good, I often want to do every single day. And I've learned I don't need to do them every single day. Like, I could do this twice a week. And that has helped me a lot. I think a lot of people have very like unrealistic expectations of their ideal morning, and we don't need that much. It's just like what's effective. And I think for me, I would rather do less things. Like I've played with, do I do more and it's all just like little bite-sized amounts, or do I peel back and just do one or two things and it's a little bit more? And I'd rather that and then like rotate throughout the week. Yeah. So I think it's just been playing with like dosages, so to speak. And I mean, I think about like my boyfriend and I, you know, with our calendar, we are already coordinating like, okay, so we're hanging out these nights, and then on the off nights is when we both sauna and cold plunge. So we're building that into our calendar, because it's not realistic for us to both, if we're hanging out every night, also like sauna, cold plunge, by the time you get home, you take a shower, like you're winding down. It's a whole ordeal. It's a whole thing. So I think part of that, you know, being built into the calendar and just realizing like, hey, if I'm doing this twice a week, when does this make sense? That all helps as well.
Something that I do too, which I don't know if this is good or bad or neutral, but with the journaling thing or like a walk, I'll do a shorter one in the morning and then I'll like leave the dopamine for later. Like I'll be like, I can come back to this once I finish everything. And then it's like by the time I want to come back to it, I don't need it anymore. You know, but it's like, it's still good to be like, yeah, I'll go for a sunset walk too if I want to, you know, and I have time for it. Because then it gives me something to look forward to for afterwards. But I can't like, it's not that I can't look forward to something afterwards, but it's like if I'm too rigid with what I'm doing after I'm being productive, I also can't go into the flow, you know, because I'm like, well, afterwards I'm going to do this, and then I'm like just focusing on what the afterwards is going to be. I have to be able to be like, no, I'm dialed in. Even if I only need, let's say I need to work for 5 hours, I have to have like an 8-hour block so that it's like I don't start to feel rushed, you know?
So how do you manage that with things you want to do like personally?
Well, to be honest, like my social life is usually very spontaneous. It's either very spontaneous or like planned months in advance. Like if it's like a festival or a show I know I'm going to, I know I have it to look forward to. But like anything that I'm doing with friends is always like decide the day of. Which I'm, you know, lucky that that's how all my friends are too.
I'm not like that.
Yeah, I know. You're not like that at all. You're not like that at all, which is great though, because then I know when I'm going to see you, you know? But for me, it's like, that way there is that space, but I can also go off of like how I'm feeling. Like I don't necessarily feel social today, so I don't need that. But with other things, like I'm more so rigid with like the health practices and like what I personally need. It's like I need to be outside a lot during the day. Just me personally, like I have to just be outside. So I know for that, I plan for that. It's like I need to get my work done. Because I don't like to work. I mean, I do like to work at night, but it's not like the best idea, because it's kind of like what's it called? A gamble. You know? So I try not to like work at night. So it's like, okay, I got to get up early enough to where there'll still be light in the day for me to be outside afterwards.
Okay. So, I mean, I think for me, it's been a lot of playing around with when I'm most efficient at things, and like different things on my schedule I try at different times of day to see what's most productive. Like I do really well like in my like afternoon slump is like when is a good time to put in a lot of things I used to try and put in the morning. So like it's an afternoon slump when is actually a good time for me to like journal versus like first thing in the morning, because then I just That's like
so true
get the ball rolling. And so it goes back to this idea of you know, our willpower is highest in the morning, and so they say like the things that you need the most willpower for, do in the morning, like because the later the day goes on. And I used to do the things I wanted to do the most in the morning, but those are the things I need the least willpower for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So
like,
it was all distorted. So all the things that I'm like, I could be dead as a doornail, right? And like I'm still gonna make it happen. Like I'm still gonna pull some cards. Like, I'm still gonna get lost in my emotions. Like I don't need willpower for it. So I've learned to push it later. And that has helped me out a lot. So I think people really need to play with like when they feel like most productive, or when things naturally flow out for them, or if I already know I'm going to be creative at this time in this setting. Like when I'm writing a book, my workflow, and I'm like, I think this would give a lot of people anxiety. If I have set aside 2 days to work on a book, which has happened a few times now, I have 2 days. I wake up, I sleep in to whenever I want, which isn't like too late, but usually like maybe 7:30. And then I have a slow morning. I will usually go on a long walk, and then I will usually have a couple hours of just like reflection and setting the space and pulling cards and setting intention. And I don't usually start writing until 12 or 1, sometimes 2. And then I am just zeroed in from 12, 1 or 2 until usually like dinner. And then I go on another walk, and then I eat dinner, and then I usually just relax the rest of the night. And so I think a lot of people would be surprised by that, because a lot of people think like, oh, you only have 2 days, like wake up and like make the most of the day. But I know I'm most productive if I have spent the whole morning just kind of like sorting through the field and then getting bored. Because sometimes when I'm bored, I'm like, okay, I want to work. Yeah. But if I'm like, I have to work, then I'm really slow.
Yeah. And it's like, again, working with it as a creative flow. Yeah. Instead of just like, oh, I have to work, which obviously some work doesn't necessarily get to be inherently creative, but it's like if you're writing a book, you're like, I'm going to get on this wave of this creativity flow. I know I'm going to be in the zone. And like, you know, you're going to be more productive starting at 2 p.m. than you would have if you would have woken up at 6 and like forced yourself. It probably would have still taken you the whole day. Yeah. But it would have been like more bumpy maybe. Yeah. And it wouldn't have just been like riding that wave.
100%. I've been trying to think about like, I think like I'm pretty good at time management. Like
you're really good at it.
Like and I was trying to think out like why? You know? I'm not sure.
Because you had to be this successful.
Yeah, I do think that's
we're the same, and I wouldn't be able to get there if I wouldn't have time management, you know.
Yeah, I think just like having to be,
you have to,
you learn how to make it work. And so I think I don't know, survival.
Yeah, it's literally like going with the river instead of swimming upstream.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like, I think a lot of people talk about this in college. I'm like, how the fuck did I do everything I did?
Oh my God.
Like literally how?
I will tell you exactly how I did it. It was so toxic. I would procrastinate everything.
Yeah, I did too.
Like legitimately until the night before, but not even the night before. Like the night before at 2 a.m. at IHOP. While everyone else, there's 30 people around me all talking, and I'm just like writing a fucking paper, a 10-page paper. Yeah. You know, and it's like, because when I force myself to get into that mode, I can get into that mode. Yeah. But I couldn't just like in a regular, I mean, I wasn't very self-aware when I was in college, you know? But now I can, like you said, set the scene. Like for me, like when I'm working now, especially because I do work from home, it's like I set the space. Like every day is a different playlist. Am I listening with my headphones or am I listening with my speaker? Those are two very different energies. Like, am I in my own world where absolutely no one can talk to me? I don't even want to know if my dog is next to me, you know? Yeah. Or am I like a little bit more vibey? That's usually if I'm being more creative. And it's like every single thing is important for like how you're getting into that flow. And something that you told me that helped me a lot was like, when you do get those moments where you're like, I have to journal or like I have to pull cards, it's better to just like do that. Like not saying to do like 3 hours or whatever, but it's like just do that and then get into your workflow. Yeah. You know, and that's not something that I would do every day, especially now, because I think what you just said is a really good point of like, I don't need the willpower to pull cards and journal or think and just sit and be in my emotions. So it's better to do it later. But it's like, if there's something really pressing that's like bothering me, it's so much better to just like go into it.
Well, because that's not about willpower. That's about, it's on your mind. So it's taking up mental space and it's like, you got to deal with it. And I have always been, I had this problem all throughout school where I would be working on something and I'd be thinking about a problem that I needed to solve. And I was like, I cannot focus. Yeah. And so I learned I had time in my calendar every single day. Like when there were things I wanted to research or learn about or look up or like I have an idea, I would I read it all down. And then I gave myself 2 hours at the end of every day. That was my research time where I could just get in these rabbit holes. And that saved me a lot. And to this day, I do that because things pop in. I'm like, okay, that goes in the research time. That goes in the research time. But if there's something on my mind or my heart, and I will be like, okay, tomorrow I'm figuring this out. And what I do is I time limit. It's like I get 8 hours. I get a whole day. to be in this, to research it, to look up random shit, to be on TikTok, to go into Reddit forums, like whatever it is, when I'm trying to figure the fuck out, to read books, and I get the whole day, the whole fucking day. I don't have to do anything, and then it's done. So whatever conclusion I get to that's it. And that in the long run saves me a lot of time if something is on my mind. You know? Or another version of that will be if it's on my mind, it's like immediately, depending on what it is, I'm like, okay, I'm giving myself time right now to find someone to hire who's going to figure it out for me. Like I has to get figured out in my brain. And so I do one of those two things, and then I'll work later. Is basically how I do it.
I love that.
Which I know not everybody can do, but that's why I give the school example before. Like give yourself an hour or 30 minutes of like, I get to just go into this question. Yeah.
And, you know, something you told me in the training that helped everything settle in for me too was like, this is the masculine structure that allows your feminine to flow. And it's like both of us at, you know, so you said this in the last episode we recorded too, but it's like both of us at certain points have tried to just go with the flow and like be all just the flow. And it's like, it feels like shit. Yeah. Because you're nowhere. You're like, yeah, you're everywhere, but you're also nowhere.
Yeah, it doesn't get you anywhere. Let me ask you something. Why do you think that so many people have great ideas, great creative ideas, and so many people don't ever do them? It's like, for example, the person that says, I want to write a book. And then you're like, okay, well, when on your calendar are you going to write a book? Or you'll try and get them to implement a schedule. And like, I don't want a structure. I can't do that. Why do you think that people who have these great ideas and they want to write that book or start that podcast or grow their platform, why do you think they don't? Like, why do you think people resist the structure of their calendar?
That one, the first one thing that popped into my head is fear of failure, because the second that you actually commit to it, you can fail at it. With the time management conversation, I think it's also like they want it to be like they don't want to have to commit to it in that way. Like they don't want to have to actually put in hours. Like they want it to just fall in.
Why? Is that interesting?
It is. They just want it to, because it's like, yeah.
It's like I want the book to be written, but I don't want to write the book. Yeah. And I think it's like really, it's like a genuine question. I'm like, why? Yeah. Like, so it's like we say we want to create this thing, but then we don't want to create it. Yeah. So which is it? Yeah. Because if you really want to do something, you put it on your calendar.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I feel like a lot of people like with these things that they say that they actually want to create, it's actually not like what they're true, like, and like what wants to be birthed out of them. Yeah. Like there's a difference between like, for example, me, I know I'm going to write a book eventually. I don't know what it's going to, I know I'm going to write like a memoir because my life is fucking entertaining, you know? I'm probably going to write books about things that I don't know yet. I don't feel that like divine, like write it. And because I am in tune with that most of the time, because I'm an artist, it's like I go off of what I'm being, like what wants to be birthed through me right now. And I think a lot of people like either don't ask that question or like they're wanting to create things because they think it would be cool, not because like they actually want to create it. And so then of course you're going to have resistance to it because it's like, you're not supposed to write a book. You're supposed to make a movie. Yeah. You're supposed to start a YouTube channel. You're supposed to literally just paint. You know what I mean?
Well, because what you really want is not the end result that you think you want. It's the thing that you like to do every day, right? Like you like to write. So you want to write a book, but there are people like, I want to write a book, but I don't like to write. Yeah, exactly. So no, you don't. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why things don't. It's just all distorted. It's like you just think you want the end result, but if you don't like the creative process, it's not actually true or authentic for you.
That's the creative process is everything. It's like it's kind of. It reminds me of like, I can't remember exactly what the saying is, but it's like you're not manifesting like the end, like what you're manifesting. Like the universe is putting you in alignment with it, and that's the journey. And so that's why it's not about what you're actually manifesting. It's about who you become along the way. And that's the same thing with the creative process. And that's why it's not about the art in and of itself.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, let's use the writing example. Like, if you at your core don't want to become a writer, then you're not going to write the book. Yeah. And that people are like, I want to write the book, but they don't want to become a writer. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people shouldn't be writers because they don't like the process. But if it's resonant and you're like, I do want to be a writer, like I write every day, then you'll write the book. Yeah. That's the difference. Yeah. And I think people should think about, it's like you with music. It's like you in music, whether or not you're getting paid for it or it's going anywhere, it's still, it's happening. Like it's happening, you know? And for me, it's the same thing with writing, you know? Even if there's no point. I mean, I prefer to not have a point, to be honest.
No, same.
But there's a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I want to, you know, make an album, or I want to, it's like, you want the end result, you want the experience, but you don't want to actually do the creative thing. And that's the whole point of it.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Do you have any other thoughts on that? Of like why people don't put it in their calendar?
Well, I do think on a more surface level, people resist structure as a kind of like fuck the man kind of energy. Yeah. Like, I think there's obviously issues with masculine energy. I think people a lot of times have grown up in situations where they do. You know, you're plopped into school, you're plopped into, you know, family or work. It's like someone else is telling you, you have to show up, you know, at these hours in these ways. And we build up a lot of resentment. And so we associate calendars and schedules with suppression. And we definitely don't associate calendars and schedules with freedom. And I had to rewire that. Yeah, for sure. But now, because I'm creating my own calendar, when I'm strict with myself, I have the most freedom of all. So I think there's definitely that association. I think that people are afraid of commitment and getting locked in. I think that I think that as a collective, people have trouble focusing. Like, people really have trouble focusing. And so I think any dynamic that's going to pull them, force them into focus, they try to avoid. Yeah. And I think some of that is because we live in this world where we're constantly distracted. And so we're just used to always being distracted. And when we're not distracted, we try and find other distractions. And I also think it's because people are generally burnt out. Yeah. And when you're generally burnt out, the last thing you want to do is plop yourself into a setting where like you've got to do whatever you've got to do. And so you'll just have this general resistance to like focusing or getting things done. And so I think those are some of the reasons why people just don't want the schedule. People like to be able to change their minds. It's swipe culture all the time, you know, and to build anything great, you have to be committed. You know, people want to feel like I can change my mind at any time. And just understand that when you keep yourself in that situation, you're never going to have anything with real depth or get to where you want to go. Like that is you staying in that dynamic. And if you want to create something, like build something really great, you have to put yourself in a position where changing your mind isn't an option.
Yeah. I think that's a huge one. Yeah. And I think that it's also like reframing, like you said, the calendar. And as you were talking, I was thinking like how you can see it as something actually creative. So it's like where, school, work, all these things are someone else putting you on their calendar. It's like, what do you want to do with your time? Yeah. With your kingdom, queendom, with your life? Like, how do you want to structure it? And then it's like, if something doesn't work, cool. Like that happens to me all the time. It's like, or like you said, like let's just say that I'm going to try and do the hard things first. And that like I fall flat on my face. You know, it's like, okay, cool. Now I know what works for me. And now I know that task switching is not great. And so like, what can I do to be creative to make my schedule not have as much task switching, you know? And so it gets to be like, I don't know, like engineering kind of, and like Tetris.
It's fun. I think it's cool. And like when you get in a flow of getting things done and feeling good, you feel so empowered, you get a high and you want to keep going. But like, do you see how this is the same energy as dating? The number of people who I talk to who's like the classic male entrepreneur, like I want a wife. I want to settle down. I want kids. I've built this whole thing. But who do they date? You know, 22-year-olds in college. Yeah. And then they get bored after 2 weeks and then find another. It's like, they're like, I don't want a commitment, but I want a wife. I'm like, which one do you want? Yeah. Pick. And it's like, if you actually want a marriage, a committed relationship, you're going to to foster that, have to at some point say, I'm not going to keep all my options open. I'm going to choose an option and see how far I can take this. And it's I think sometimes that same resistance in personal life will show up with the calendar. And I also think sometimes when there's no resistance in one area, that's where the resistance will come up in the other area because you're looking for a space to let loose. Like if I feel so locked in over here, I don't want to commit because I'm too, does that make sense? Yeah. And so I think it's like very connected to our relationship with dating.
Yeah.
It's swipe culture.
Yeah.
And so we do that with our calendar. I want to keep it open. Don't want to get locked in. Don't want to make, and I think about a lot of entrepreneurs I work with, and like, this is the energy. Like it's the same person who doesn't want to, I'll let you know later. They never want to decide.
Yeah.
And they also don't ever want a real relationship. They want to date, and they like the idea of a relationship, and they say they want to get married, but the way they date is not to get married. It's just to keep options open. So you got to kind of look yourself in the mirror and see, like, if you want to build, and this is what I say to a lot of these male entrepreneurs. I'm like, think about how you built this company. What did you do? And they're like, well, for 10 years, I put my head down. I didn't have a social life. I didn't date. I just focused. I built. I committed. I was all in. I worked late. And not saying that's the way you have to do it, but I'm saying this is how I will relate to them. I'll be like, okay, and so that's how you built this amazing thing, right? Like, yeah, I'm like, so what do you think is going to work for building a relationship that feels like a kingdom? And they're just like, same thing, It can be flip-flopping around. So I think that's important to look at too.
Yeah. I think it's really important to look at like the resistance that people have underlying these things. And like, it's okay too if a lot of that is just like societal, like we were saying, of like, oh, but I feel like having a very strict schedule means that I don't have freedom, because like we've associated that. It's like, that's fair, and same thing with like a relationship. We would associate that as like, oh, I don't have freedom because I'm committed to this person. And it's like, or is the freedom knowing that you're going to come home every day to the same person that you love and care, like, it's just how you relate to it. Because I think a lot of people, like you said, they sit, like, I see people all the time dating that are just like, I'll ask them, like, do you want a relationship? Yeah. Because it's like they're dating and they're getting like deep with these people, but then like they're wanting to run. Yes. And I'm like, so do you want a relationship? And they don't even answer right away. And I'm like, okay, so if you don't even know if you want a relationship, then why are you with this person forming this deep connection where you're both confused? Like, are you in or you out? Yeah. Are you in or you out with your calendar? Are you in or you out with your business? Like, are you in or you out with whatever the creative project? Yeah. And I think that like maybe for some people that sounds harsh, but it's like, wouldn't you rather just put all your energy where you know you want to put it? Yeah. Because like, if you don't want to put it there, that's okay. Like you said, like if you don't want to write the book, but like don't have all this mental space that's thinking like, I'm going to create this book. Totally. Oh yeah. It's like a waste of energy. Well, it's a reason to stay in your same bullshit and not change anything and not set boundaries and things like that. Yeah. But what you were saying about dating, like, what were you just saying about like not, what did you about say that energy again? People not wanting, like, why are you in this situation where you're getting close to someone and you're like, you don't even know if you want a relationship, like when I ask you, because you're like both confused. So I was thinking about like just the idea of freedom with that, and I do think that's what you're saying before. People are unsure if they want to lose their freedom because there's the misunderstanding of what a relationship means, because people associate relationships with losing your freedom, which is untrue. And it's the same thing with the calendar and the schedule and like the time management pieces and commitment in your business, of like what people think is giving them freedom of like, oh, I don't want to schedule anything or write it down. It's not giving you freedom at all. What gives you freedom is building something so you have the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want. And I think that is like, there's instant gratification, fake freedom, and there's a real freedom in your life. And it's, I think, as a business owner, you see people who want to become entrepreneurs or have their own business, and they're living this life that they see other business owners living, and they're not getting anywhere with their company because they're trying to do all the things that people who have been in business for years and years and years are doing now, because they've given themselves the freedom to do that. I have so much more open space and flexibility in my calendar. If I was starting day one today, there's no fucking way I would be able to do all that shit I do now. And like, so I focused and I committed for bigger freedom in my life, and so it's like, if I kept with that instant gratification, fake freedom, I never would have felt free, because I like, money does give you freedom. It does. And so doing things that are going to actually open up those portals to receive money or to receive love, right? It's like when you have real divine love in your life, like that is freedom. When you're in commitment energy, that is freedom. So I think it's realizing the big picture of like what you really want, and because that is freedom.
And what do I have to do to create that real long lasting freedom in my life? And the other piece is, what is it that you really want to be doing? Like, what is it that you want to be doing? I think getting clear on that, because I think there's also like the grass is always greener, where I know for myself, there's this like life I had in my head about what I wanted from my business and like the freedom I wanted. I'm like, you know, I want to work hard and make this money and then just like do nothing all day. And then I like got there and I was like, I don't actually like doing nothing all day. You know, like I was like, I actually like really like my work. Like I like to do it. And so I think there's that too. For example, it's like, you know, people thinking I don't want to be in a committed relationship because I want XYZ, but then they're just doing that and they're never fulfilled. Yeah. I'm like, what is it that you actually want to do with your free time? I think there's like a reality check there for people as well. And I think getting to the bottom of that can help you realize why you're resisting things and why you're not, or even really, because it's about, if you want to do something and you're not doing it, you've got to figure out what part of me doesn't want to do it. It's that simple. And how can I make this so convincing that of course I would want to do it? There's no downside. And so I think when we realize what we really want in terms of freedom, like what does freedom mean to you? What is it that you want to be doing in your day? And then you say, what actions will allow me to get here? Then you're going to do it.
Yeah. Choose your hard.
Yeah.
And choose your easy.
Yeah. Classic. So I don't know. There's a lot with time management. I love talking about this. And I think that this is one of those, like, it's logistical, but it's an energy hack, right? Because you change your schedule and the way you feel is completely different, and you actually can either energize yourself or deplete yourself based on how you do things, when you do things, and your relationship to doing things. And I will tell you, like, a lot of my resistance to doing stuff, I did energy work around it. I cleared the block, and then I stopped procrastinating. So I think that's just like the piece for people to know. If the tangible things aren't working, do some energy work around it. And clear the resistance. It really works. So hopefully that was helpful for people with time management. And
let us know if you have any specific questions we can go into.
We love this. I love this. It's my favorite thing to talk about and teach people on. And like, I mean, this is all about optimization, you know? So there's a lot we can do just by moving things around and being concentrated with our energy. And people always ask me like how I do this, how I do that. And like, this is how I produce content. So 10 years strong. All right. Hopefully that was helpful.